Welcome to another Black in a Box. Black faces in white spaces.
No, go again. It's the world is told.
I started saying it, I was like, you've got this wrong.
we all
Help.
Fuck.
Help me.
Help me.
There we go.
That's
You all right?
Welcome to another Black in a Box. The world as told by black faces in white spaces.
Impeccable.
Indeed.
It's always better the second time round.
Sometimes.
Yeah. How are we all?
Good, thank you. Yeah, not too bad.
Everyone in studio. It's good not to have a dial in.
It is.
Yeah.
Welcome to our latest guest, Tyla.
Hi.
I'll run the same post-production again. We'll get some claps in there, some cheers. All that kind of stuff.
Rather than be live.
Got the mixing board at home.
How are we feeling? How are you all feeling?
Yeah, good, man.
Good. Happy to be here.
It's finally happened, hasn't it? Angela.
He's gone home. He's come home.
I've come home, man.
Oh, wow.
Come home. It's been a really interesting month or so of doing this, but
How you feeling about
old.
that?
Old. But I also feel true now as well.
But you look
I'm no
younger.
I don't look
I was
younger.
going to say, it's giving youth.
Oh, wonderful. I'll take all this. Thank you.
Also, it's a
But
bigger,
no, I want to own it.
yeah, it's a bigger journey for you than it is for us. Because I've basically just seen you like that anyway for the last.
That's what everyone always says. They're always like, well, your hair's short anyway.
Yeah, I
Don't
mean,
have hair now.
Just to
yeah.
clarify for any listeners, we are discussing Don's dome.
Oh, yeah, I'm bald now. I'm bald.
Now?
Oh, fuck it.
To be fair,
I
so
said nothing.
yeah, in fairness, the journey that this went on was he's been struggling for a while, and then he came to London and his champs dragged his hairline
Oh, they did.
Back.
I wore as well.
back from the dead.
It was mad. I remember the first time I went there. I was like, what have you done? Like, how have you managed?
Exactly, you got a little weave at the front, and you had that for a bit. And to be fair, I was like, I don't know how he's done that.
I'm gonna lie, we were calling you Lace
This
Don
is-
for a while.
No spray paint as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, didn't get the out washing your head,
Yeah, but we're done now.
but yeah, mate, it looks good.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it does.
Appreciate it.
Any plans, Angela?
To do what?
Come home.
To donate.
Do I need to?
Well,
This is the one thing that I have been blessed with is an unnecessarily strong hairline, which is funny because if you look at every other man in my family, I'm not even, no, I didn't start a sibling beef. Yeah, there's a struggle that I'm not privy to.
Count your blessings, man.
I do.
Good.
let's
You know, you guys know the day I've had it. It's offset. It's offset. Always offset.
There we go.
well, put it to the test. Do you think you'll ever cut your hair?
I mean, I used to be.
Yeah, but do you think again though?
Yeah, I might, if I have a role that required it, then sure.
If the money's right.
Yeah, the money would have to be right. But Ryan Coogler used to have hair like this, and then he made Black Panther, and he had to pattern up in it.
Disney bag.
He got the Disney bag. He was
Yeah.
like, "Oh yeah, no, I'll cut it. Yeah." And then he got the
Waiting
Rocky,
for the
and then he got the
Disney
Rocky bag. Huh?
You're waiting for the Disney call.
Yeah, it's better than waiting for the Top Boy call. You know,
Is it?
Is it?
I'm just not playing. I'm not playing a gangster.
He will play a gangster.
Price is right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Clip this. I will never play a
Yeah.
gangster.
Rap man. Ashley, any of you guys, if you're listening, he will play a gangster. He will. So just call him up. And you?
I'm not shaving my head. No.
No, but are you legally? Are you staying here?
You stayed
What's your status?
I have submitted my UK settlement application
We love it.
for just a few shekels.
Just in time for the barge to arrive.
And 5 years off of my life in stress. big up Hackney City Council, but story for another time. But it is
Stephen Green.
submitted, so now
Stephen Green, wherever you are.
oh boy. So now, we're just waiting for the results. But yeah, it's in. It's in.
Congrats, mate. I'm sure you'll be allowed over.
Thanks. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, because this is potentially the handover from woman to woman in the so it's not even an interview. Like as you know, we don't know any women, so you are ergo by default the woman on the pod. So
I've got to learn on the job.
Yeah. You'll pick it up really quickly. Yeah.
I got this. I do have my head shaved, so I'm halfway there.
There we go.
Yeah.
Nice.
Gang.
There we go.
Yeah, more in the crew than I am these days. Jeez.
Watch your back.
I think today is a day for learning. And also later on, it's a day to do what Angela loves to do, and it's talk about the royal family. But right now, I'm sorry, brother. It's not true. It's not true. We are going to talk about neurodiversity. Now, I don't know about neurodiversity, which is one of the few topics I will honestly say that about, as you know, on this pod.
What are the few topics?
What are the three things I don't know about? I guess today, Tyler, you know more than I.
Indeed, I do.
You are an elevated voice in this space. So says everyone. So says LinkedIn. So says your history. So says your writings. So says your speakings on the internet. What is neurodiversity?
I'd say neurodiversity is the understanding that just as the definition's based around the fact that, the world's biodiverse, take that to brains. Everyone's got a different brain. We're neurologically diverse as well. When you take it into the movement around fighting for equality and space and access and resources, my take on it is that you just need to take everyone as an individual and give them what they need. That's really it. So when people tend to talk about it in conversations like these, or just in the workplace, all that stuff, they tend to be talking about people who have autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, and so on. But if you take it back to what it actually means, it can then also include mental health conditions, brain damage, just anything that will help or have an individual's brain be different to the quote unquote norm and baseline. Yeah.
I find that really interesting, because that was one of the questions I actually had was, is there a difference between what people would class as a mental health condition or neurodivergence or even a personality condition or something like that. So you would consider neurodiversity to be just to encompass everyone and how all of our brains work differently then?
Yeah, in the sense that even anyone who doesn't have any sort of diagnosis or quote unquote disorder applied to them, everyone's brain is different and we're all in the same spaces. So two people in a room, that room's not neurodiverse. There's two different brains in that room.
Yeah. Okay.
It's so much of a more accessible idea as starting point for conversations to have this, to just accept it as everyone's different. So again, from to a lay person thinking about the conversation being that someone is different in whatever way to autism is a spectrum of behaviors, and it's not just that's a spectrum now. It's okay, we've now got everyone. It's it's almost like a galaxy.
Yeah.
And that every galaxy's got X amount of stars, X amount of planets, and
That's a much healthier way of looking at it.
Yeah, for me for people just to understand that, it's okay, everyone's got its specific needs, and it's I guess a better place to use your example for in a school. It's the starting point that everyone needs to be catered for, rather than we're just going to do things this way, and then any outliers, is gonna suffer by comparison, I guess.
Yeah, I think also in this space is where you got to take into fact that so many people will have the enough traits to be classed as having whatever condition, but won't have access to a diagnosis, or like just might have more than one like neurodivergence. So it's like if they've only got one diagnosis, they're only treated or given help for one, you don't cater for the others. It's like, well, they need more than what you're giving them just because you see them as one person based on this one label, when really if you see them as an individual, you can help them like get to where they need to be.
So I was going to ask, I've been freelancing at a school for autistic children, and one of the things that's super obvious is the disparity in gender. So there are whole classes where there are no girls, for example, and I was just wondering if you could talk about maybe like your path to diagnosis, because it seems from my experience of working at that school that there's something being missed in girls.
Yeah, so kind of before I'll answer like how my path, but then also like why the school's probably full of like male identifying kids. It's like because the diagnostic criteria was written with young white boys in mind. So then anything other than that cis white male over the age of probably 10 has got to get missed. So for me, that looked like I didn't get diagnosed until I'm technically, it's a long story. They messed up my paperwork, being black in the health system, don't have the paperwork for my diagnosis. But it got like, I became a cause for concern in college basically. And luckily my form tutor was the head of special educational needs. I kind of got an ultimatum of you go into the mental health services to find out what's going on in there or you're leaving college. And I like had plans of going to uni, was like, just leaving college just wasn't in my destiny. So I was like, right, okay, cool. Like I'll go speak to someone again, see what they've got to say this time. Because I've been engaging in those services since I was about 7. And even with that, the first thing they labelled me with around 7 was anger management issues. And I was like, what's a 7-year-old got to be that angry about? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Then also, like, I'd bring up, like, I'd vocalise, like, oh, I have no friends. Like, I find it hard to play with people. Like, all of these things, which now I know about, like, autism more, someone should have picked this up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, even suicidal ideation, like, what is a 7-year-old with an all right home, like, there's no external factor that should have had me like verbalizing that kind of like behavior or like those thoughts. So anyway, yeah, go through the whole process at college, and they were like, yeah, you're autistic and depressed. And I was like, oh, the autism's new. So yeah, that's how I found out.
Yeah, it's so, and that's even just that whole pathway, and it's great that you were able to kind of get that reassurance and get there eventually. But you also, well, at least I feel like we probably would all agree that if you were a young white boy, this just would not have been the case. And you know that young white children who have quote unquote problems, I'm using air quotes, it's what's going on at home? What are you feeling? Like, what's wrong? Let's get to the bottom of this early. And there's so many solutions for that demographic of people. And then everybody else, it's just they immediately jump to the most negative conclusion.
For sure. And it's also kind of weird because like when I like think back and look at me as a student, I had a massively like what they call a spiky profile. So I'd be super strong in some areas and then really weak in areas that would seem to be linked. So it wouldn't make sense. I'd be like amazing at one skill and horrific at another. But again, looking through a SEN lens, it's like, oh, there's a like you need to dig in here and find out what's going on. Like even I remember this one time. No, because I used to run away from school. Like at lunch, because I'd hide at lunch at break times, and I'm talking primary school. I'd hide under the coats so I didn't have to play out. And then obviously you have to go outside, like health and safety. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. And then if I'd want to like go outside and I just sit against a wall just to like let the hour go by. Apparently that's not allowed either. So then they'd make me play with people. And this one time, they're like, oh, go play with Lizzie and Alice. I'm like, okay. They were playing, like, you know, what's the time, Mr. Wolf or something. And it was my turn to, like, be the wolf. I'd played along, like, I'd listened to everyone else. I'd, like, played the game. And then they were talking during my turn. And, like, part of the game is that you have to be quiet because, like, it's the whole, like, crux of the game. So I walked over to and I literally banged their heads together.
Probably what every teacher has ever dreamed of doing.
I've always wanted to do that.
Yeah. I was
That's
like,
the
well,
most Jamaican thing I've ever heard.
you don't hear, you must feel. It was bad, yeah. And then, but like, there's just constantly things like that. And luckily, I had really bad hay fever as a kid. So like summers, I got to stay inside. But it's like, if I didn't, my time at school would have been even worse because I would have been forced to do like what every other kid has to do.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't think they could understand that. Yes, I can talk with people, I can communicate with them, but when I'm telling you, like, I do not have friends, it's because I didn't. I could see other people would have like bonds and like relationships and like sleepovers and da-da-da and da-da-da. And it's like, I had like one friend at one time and then she made friends with someone else and forgot about me.
What was the SEN provision like at your school, not for you? Because you said that there was a head of SEN. Were there other children that were diagnosed with other neurodiverse conditions and you were missed?
So primary school, yes, there was one of the students in our class had support like all the time, and there was like 2 or 3 others that would have like extra support, like depending on what subjects they super struggled with. Then for secondary school, I was actually diagnosed with dyslexia then. So they managed to pick, I mean, it was a grammar school and my test scores weren't where they needed to be, so they needed to find out why. Turns out they think that, I don't know. I'm still not set on the dyslexia diagnosis now that I know I'm autistic, but because it's my type of dyslexia is about like information processing. So the worst case has been when I've been learning to drive. I can't take in road signs quick enough, but I don't know if that's because I struggle to read them or what. But then know more about dyslexia, like it is a bit more than just seeing words on a page. So yeah, secondary school, I engaged with those services. They just gave me extra time in exams, gave me a laptop and like, okay, cool, fix yourself. Then college, it's again being the white, like the black kid in white spaces. Like I'm going to a Catholic convent in Cheshire, like they didn't care. Then college, there was again a strong system there for, I guess there was a whole like program, extra learning, different types of learning for students who had special educational needs, but my paperwork didn't come through. So they took on the information to not kick me out. I already had my dyslexia information with them anyway, so my exams, I'd take them in smaller rooms and all this stuff. Then for university, because I didn't have any support for autism post-diagnosis, I didn't know how it manifested in my life. And again, that's another massive transition. And looking back at like the breakdowns, the blowouts, like all of the things that happened while I was at uni which weren't healthy, they could have been avoided had I had access to the support that every other autistic kid had at that uni.
I was reading an article in preparation for today by a Canadian writer called Oisatu Odia-Barry, and she'd written, after months of wondering why I operated the way I did, my diagnosis felt like an aha moment. I realised I wasn't inherently lazy, unmotivated or scattered, I was simply neurodivergent. And that's something which another friend of mine has had a similar feeling, that he only got the diagnosis recently. He's 35 now, and he's been thinking this since he was like 18, 19. Did you, I know you've not had your paperwork, did you get that same feeling of kind of like whether vindication or like justification that?
Not at 17, no. Because it was more of that, the reason I was going in there was to stay at college, and I got that, so it's more of a relief that I wasn't gonna have to replan my whole life. I think when I really started engaging in and learning more about being autistic and neurodiversity as a whole was when I was about 22, so it was like for nearly 5 years after. And it's still, I think because of my point of engagement, it's not an aha because I don't view diagnosis. I don't hold diagnosis on a pedestal. I just view it as a data point. It's like, like know more about yourself. So am I glad to have a shortcut in what would have been years of trying to figure it out? Yeah.
I really like your classifying it as more of a data point, because I think even as far as I know, I don't have, you know, a neurodivergent or a brain or anything, but who knows, maybe. But when I think about my identity as like a Black woman, that is also just a data point for me. And I think sometimes some people really strongly identify with certain parts of their personality, and there probably are people who have autism who strongly identify with that, which is fine. But then I think it's also to recognize that not everybody wants to be seen as, you know, the girl with autism or the Black girl. And it's just, this is something that now I'm armed with this information, I can kind of move forward in my life, but I'm much more than that.
Yeah, I think because again, like a lot of it is now you know what you're going to do about it, because it's that information to then make changes, like, and not, I mean, I've got hay fever, that's an allergy, but it's like when you know you've got an allergy, you act differently. And it's just things like that. So, and again, it's not because I don't discredit or like want to downplay the relief it can bring, because if you are at crisis point and everything's falling apart and you don't know what's going on, I can imagine how finding that out is a really relieving and an aha moment. But it's then another battle, because you also have to come to going to your point, it's like you got to come to terms with what that means for you, and like where's it going to sit in your identity, how are you going to tell, like how, and also a lot of the times there's some unlearning to do with like ableism, because I've had it, being vocal about it, like people in my circles will come to me like, oh, like suspect or like have been, I was like, we get on, of course you are. And there was literally one the other day and I was like, I thought you knew. But I was like holding back because they were like not upset but like were just a bit shook. Like, I saw a reel on Instagram and now I think, I was like, well, now I know, but but yeah, and I was like, well, part of the reason you're shook is obviously if you've lived 35 years of your life and then you're being told that's again the thing, you're not being told you're something different, you're being given a piece of information about yourself, like a word for how you've been, not to say you're something different. So yeah, and it's also like you've viewed autistic people as other until this point, and now you're one of us, so you're a fool. Because like every time you've thought you were better than, you're actually judging yourself.
Reach.
Yeah. Damn.
Yes. The reason I'm particularly fascinated by this, because one of my really close friends was diagnosed at 31, but had to take their employer to a tribunal that they.
Oh, I rate them for doing
that. They follow you. They're a huge fan of yours actually, and were very excited when they heard that we were kind of blessed with you on the pod. What I was going to ask, and I think we were going to get to this a little bit later, so forgive me if I'm jumping forward.
It's fluid, brother.
Is that obviously the report came out in 2021 that said that 78% of autistic adults are not in work, and in fact, it was 16%. Only 16% are in full-time work. I've watched a lot of your YouTube videos, and you've talked about kind of, it's not for you specifically a question of capability. You're very good at what it is that you do. Could you kind of speak to us and also kind of like our audience on what some of the challenges that you face are? Yeah,
I think, I mean, the way that work life is, I'll speak to the UK, 9-5, like even in this flexibility, like quote unquote flexible working times, like it's not flexible. Like there's a lack of trust from the employer to the employee, which unless it just creates challenges. So like I'll speak to the times that I've had. I've lost jobs because I didn't want to do social things, which were out of scope of the role, not in my job description. I mean, advertising, yeah, it's a bit of a social industry. The quote unquote, like they're trying to change it. Like it's a new day, and all this. And it's like, but it was a coffee. She didn't even want to go to the pub. I was like, no, I don't want a coffee in the middle of the day. And it was the only thing about the role that would give me anxiety. I'm like, it's a stressful job. Yeah, I know that. I know what I signed up for, but I enjoy it, so I don't mind. This weekly coffee is actually like heart palpitations, tight chest, sweaty palms. No, thank you. And then like, the perm role that's here isn't for you. I'm like, after telling me I'm really good at my job. So I'm like, okay, cool. Other challenges just been, I think I have it's being reframed as honesty. But
you said a lot without saying that much there.
No, I love this. Please get into this. I love this.
So when businesses don't make sense, and that again, like it causes me physical pain when things don't make sense. So if like we're in team meetings, like I'm basically always the one that says what everyone's thinking, but no one said. They've got their reasons, but I'm going to say it because it's on my chest. Like I need the answer, and a lot of the time that comes across as defiant, and it's not. It's I want information, and the reason it comes across as defiant is because you don't have an answer.
Yeah.
And also because you're a black woman. Because if you're a white man and you had this attitude, it would be like, what a gun.
I like your
driving the business forward.
Yeah.
The sharp brain, yeah, come on.
Yeah, there's even been times when questions I've asked when I've been at places, and then obviously keep in touch with people who work there, they get answered when I'm gone, and someone else gets the fame for like bringing like the issue to light. I'm like, you know what, these are jokers. What else are issues? I think on the day to day, particularly at the moment, like, and again, I'm in a much better company. Like they're a lot more respectful of like work time, and working from home really does mean working from home. Like we're remote first, all that good stuff. But like, again, I'm still autistic. So no matter where you put me, I'm going to have challenges. And I get really bad, like, what's the word? Proved it. Brain fog. So I get really bad brain fog when like, if there's another part of my life that's a bit out of whack, or like I'm closing or like nearing depression, like my brain just starts to shut down. So like Monday, I was the only one with the password for a keynote. I lost it. It's gone. And it was needed to be delivered at 1 p.m. And it's like, it in the beginning, it just looks like forgetfulness. But when these things happen again and again, so like, what else happened? Like I've lost my keys 3 times, couldn't find my purse. Like, and it's again why autism's missed in women, because like, oh, she's ditzy, or like, ha ha ha, like, oh, she's forgetful, all these things. So it's like, sometimes it's small things, sometimes it's bigger things, but eventually it's just chipping away at how good you are at being the model perfect person, which is like the standard everyone's held to, but naturally my brain just isn't wired to align with that.
I do feel as well that I have a frustration with the way that some places can be very unaccommodating. And I remember my friend kind of asked if wanted to go to university to do a master's, and was asking, is there provision to have lectures put online so that I can, if I'm kind of for whatever reason not able to come in, I can access them online. And they were like, nope, absolutely not. So could not take a place at university. And then when COVID hit, they then made all of the courses available online. But by that point, they'd already lost the place on the course. And isn't it interesting that so much of especially with kind of homeworking, that there was this, during COVID, and people went, this really works for me because if I need to take some time and but how many people had been lost to, in inverted commas, the workforce, because companies, until they were forced to, weren't able or not, no, it's not able,
Willing. They
weren't
weren't
willing,
willing.
weren't
Yeah.
willing to make those small changes.
Yeah, I definitely I got a 2-2 because I had to do paper submissions as well as online.
Yeah.
And like I would get it in online on time, and then I'm like, next time I'm on campus, I'll drop it by, but I'm not coming in to give you a piece of paper which you have, and you mark the online copy. So what is the point? And you could there's no time for me to change it. I can't do anything about it. Like again, logically, don't make no sense. So I'm just like things like that, and then even on businesses, and I think what's now the struggle is like the return to the office. And then wanting to like put in these new, like unnecessary like rules and it helps morale. And it's like, how does it? If I'm telling you it doesn't make me happy, how does this go to making boosted morale and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Well, Tyler and I worked at the same place for a while, and I'm not going to name the place on the pod, but they had that whole thing where there was a return to the office situation, but because it's COVID, we don't need all this office space. So close half the office and you've lost half the desk capacity. And then you're then asking people to come in, but they don't have their own space.
Yeah.
Some of them, a lot of them, I think we both joined during COVID. So I didn't really, I knew a few people. Others didn't know so many people. So it's like I'm now having to come in, not necessarily with my team, but just with the same people within my job description. That was, for me, it was a bit like, this is a bit weird. And I'm the most sociable people, to the point I just force myself over the people. Hey, how are you doing? You all right? So I can only imagine exactly. So I can only imagine what that is like, and you might be able to speak more to this. Just that situation is you're then forcing people into, as you say, their version of hell without, there was no consultation on it. It's just like, you're going to have to do this on these days.
Yeah.
The thing is like no consultation and no reason. There's no real reason. And it's like in this, and I think a lot of chatter around accommodations is like, whatever the employee says needs to go. It doesn't. We need to not necessarily meet in the middle, but there's a problem. Let's work together and find a solution.
Yeah.
If it, fair enough, it's like a client's coming in, it serves for me to be there.
Yeah.
And I can swallow it for a day, but also I need you to know what this puts me through, which then might mean, okay, I get some toil. There's ways around things, but on the coming in, I remember the day someone boldly came up to me and spoke to me like they knew me. And I have a problem with faces. So I was like, I know we're on the same project, but I also know we've never met. Turns out I had the same weave as another girl. He was about a foot shorter than me, at least. She was tiny.
Oh, no.
And it was like, oh yeah, how were your eggs yesterday? And I was like, I've never made eggs in the office. What are you on about?
Oh my God.
But then also didn't remember that I work with him on a project.
You've rescued this one. You
Yeah.
know.
Jeez.
This the office black workplace chat was popping off that day.
It was so funny. And then we walked round together where they were sat. And I was like, I hope he feels like an absolute imbecile. It was ridiculous.
Oh my God.
It was so funny.
But yeah, it was just that whole sort of time was so strange. I just remember thinking that I obviously remember that day, and there were so many instances of that where I thought you're asking a lot of your workforce of their ability to cope in what was a really strange time anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So it's another reminder of how far workplaces have to go on those fronts.
And I feel like it's not just the workplace. I feel like it's the world. There's just this demand from, I don't know. We live in societies where everybody's supposed to be the same, and it doesn't take into account the different, maybe challenges that people face, but also the different strengths. I, as someone who is a very strong introvert who feigns extroversion for a lot of my work, I too get so drained from all the times I have to talk to people. And I was way more productive. I was way more happy during lockdowns because I was working from home. I was able to get everything done. That is where I shine and where I'm able to focus. And then same thing where, businesses will ask you to come back in. But I think it's because in some situations, the people who are in charge assume that everybody operates within the same conditions that they do, and they don't actually take into account that neurodiversity that we were talking about.
On top of that, though, what I think is also really important is that sometimes companies can get it right, and we forget just how bad the workforce can be as well. Because if I think back to when I was at Deloitte, like, they were actually pretty good when it came to all kinds of diversity aside from ethnicity, basically. And there was a woman on my team when I first started who had ADHD. She was depressed. She had depression. She had really bad anxiety. And we were on the grad scheme. We were supposed to be in London. We were supposed to be in the office at least 4 days a week. She's from Sheffield. Within about 3 or 4 months, we were like, you got Sheffield, you work from home, come to London when you can. We're here for you. Brilliant. It was really, really good. It enabled her to be everything that she was able to be at the company. That didn't influence the way that everybody interacted with her or spoke about her. Why is she getting preferential treatment?
Yeah.
Or this is just I almost said her name then. This is just the way that they treat her. Everybody else has got to do things differently. And when you've got a culture like that is kind of going against what the company's trying to do as well, I think in certain times that can be just as damaging, because it's like all of the right things are trying to happen here and everybody else is just foregoing what's happening.
Yeah, it's 2020 post George Floyd, when we all have to everyone's got to do these like conscious bias training, and it's like, okay,
I'm just laughing because clearly not all employers did that.
They were easy to get out of, though. They were so easy to get out of.
Yeah.
But,
Sorry, Tyler. I'm not gonna without name. I've had a situation with an employer today who was put together some materials to help a child understand the error of their ways, and it's fair to say that they've caused more problems than they have solved. But sorry, Dan.
He's like a whole lot of nothing. Just a whole lot of nothing.
Every single one out.
So, should we do it?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, so as I say, I work at a school which I will not name, and there is a child there that on 4 separate occasions has called me a black bastard. And my issue has often been not with what the child has said, but with the way that it's then been handled. So after the 4th time, because I've given you three strikes, and I've given, but the 4th one is too many. I've gone to somebody that is in a position of authority and have just said that, come on, this is too much now. And you have, children of colour here, and my concern is that he's saying it to them, and also needs to learn. And so fair play, they did put a sanction in, and they said they were going to put together an educational pack for him. Today, I saw what the educational pack was, and I'm not going to. I actually think it's too X-rated to share.
I don't know.
I mean, there's a big
What do you
trigger warning
mean?
that comes.
There's a huge.
Describe.
There's a huge trigger warning. So they're saying that. So they've done it in the style of a story,
Right.
a learning journey for this child, and they've said that this child, they're using the kind of should know this, taught it for years. 3rd person. They're using the 3rd person, and they're saying, we'll call him.
Oh, that is so awkward.
So
That's my antidepressant.
It's
alarm.
probably
Sorry,
the school just being like, hey yo, don't do it.
Look, we're talking about neurodiversity, and I'm supposed to be taking my antidepressant.
We'll call the kid Timmy, and it says, Timmy is in this year at this school, and Timmy has been at this school for a long time, and Timmy is happy at this school. This is good. Timmy is having some trouble with saying words that are banned. Timmy is getting into trouble for saying these words. This is not good.
Sounds like the start of a stand-up routine, doesn't it?
Huge trigger warning. If you don't like the full use of the N-word, just block out the next 50. Just skip
Why is it in there?
Timmy must never use the word nigger or call anyone a nigger. Timmy could get into trouble with the police if he says this word outside of school. Nobody wants Timmy to get into trouble. Timmy will remember to not use the word nigger. Timmy knows now the word nigger is a banned word. Timmy can use other words when he is feeling mad. Timmy can write down the words he can say here. He called me a black bastard.
So you've taught him a new word.
I didn't.
Yeah. John did the song with Ice Cube, but every other word was nigger. That's what that felt like.
I was like,
They basically said it more times than he called you a black bastard.
they were like, 4 is clearly a good number for this kid. It takes him 4 times to hear a thing for it to really. So it's left me in a kind of way. But bringing it back to the conversation about neurodiversity, my frustration was the first time that I kind of reported it. I had, again, somebody in a position of power kind of breathlessly run up to me and go, he doesn't know what he's saying, and, it's part of his condition, and he's, got a difficult home life. And it was one of those where it's like, I have deep wells of empathy and understanding. One of the big things that place rightly teaches is a new day is a new day, and it's a new start, and it's a new day. But there also has to be this thing where you go, well, no, let's not infantilize anybody, because he does know what he's doing, because he will whisper it. He knows not to say it too loudly. He tries to make sure that nobody else is listening. 2 of the occasions, he's made sure that it's just been me and him when he has said it. And that is infantilizing, to say then that he doesn't know what he's doing. But what that resource, because I think it's important to say that I think that resource has been made with the best of intentions in mind. It just shows that there isn't an understanding of race, but also there isn't organizationally, there isn't a will to find out. The part of England that I live in is not diverse. There are not lots of people of colour, and the reason it stands out beyond the fact that the N-word is used 4 times is that this school is superb at dealing with other kinds and other forms of bigotry. It is an absolute model for the way it deals with other forms of bigotry. And the way that I want to kind of bring it back to you is, obviously you present to the world as perhaps people see you, that they don't see your autism, they see your blackness. How do you find that the world in general, how are you able to navigate, how does the world navigate you when it comes to your blackness and also your autism? Because at that school, it's clear that the black children that are there are what I think society would be able to recognise as autistic, and there are a lot of children there that can and that do try to mask. The black children that are there are not able to mask. How have you found that the world? How do you find navigating the world? Do you find it more difficult? Not do you find it more difficult? That creates a binary, but the challenges that are presented as being both black and autistic.
I think being autistic doesn't make being black in white spaces any harder. I mean, any harder. Or like because I'm already othered. So it's just they don't read what could be present because of either challenges or differences because I'm autistic as that. They'll just see it as I'm black and problematic, which either they'll obviously be black problematic or autistic and problematic either way. Like, it doesn't make that any harder, I don't think. I think it's actually kind of more challenging in black spaces when they either hear me. This is the thing. I also I do a lot of work in my head in the sense of like it's never usually helpful, I've found, in conversations to say, oh, I do this because I'm autistic, because no one knows what it means to be autistic. So it's like, oh, like I was chatting with you guys before, like, oh, I forgot the password because of brain fog which is happening because like of certain triggers which are like linked to being autistic. Like you got to work the way up. Like just ending there, you're not giving people the information they need to know and learn more, or just even help you. So I think even in instances with my family, like the autism becomes a bigger problem. So yeah.
Yvonne Kelsey Yancey said, if we can't discuss these issues, we cannot build cultures that support them. And I think that's the key thing there. It's particularly when you're talking about it amongst the black community, it's quite rare for me to come across a black person who identifies as autistic or identifies as being dyslexic compared to like the white people I come across. I mean, we've all seen sort of small acts like Alex Wheatley, and the history of them being put in educationally subnormal schools.
But it's also unfortunately hidden, or tried to be hidden by family members.
Yeah.
Because of shame.
Yeah.
It's really, really sad. It's I guess no different from the conversations we've had about mental health, queerness, all of that. Unfortunately, in the black community that I am part of, at least I've seen so much of that, far too much of that. There's examples in my own family that I can recall where it's like, this person needs help, not your denial or your disgust or your shame, and it's so unfair.
But I will also say that society is more than willing to aid and abet in that cover up, because if you look at every single school report that I ever had from 5 through to 18, it says exactly the same thing. Like literally subject through subject says exactly the same thing. Very, very bright when it comes to putting it down on paper, somewhat lacking. And it wasn't until I went to university that somebody went, go and get a dyslexia check. and then it was like, because my dyslexia is a processing thing. Yeah. It's not, I'm a good mathematician, but actually, if you say to me, oh, just remember this number for me, I'll remember the numbers, I won't remember the order. And so it's the same thing. It will be like, if I'm trying to pay for something at the till, and then somebody asks me for something that's not related to that, what I might say out of my mouth is going to be completely garbled, because... And people go, what's happening there? It's my dyslexia. It's that I can't process different things. I can process, but it has to be one thing then another thing. But every single report, like, we laugh about it now, but I remember being like, I would get into trouble because it'd be like, you're lazy, you're not getting work done. Why have you only written 4 lines? You know, and teachers say to me, you had the best ideas and everybody took your ideas and you didn't put them down. That's lazy. And it's like, no, when it came to putting it down, I did really badly. And it's so funny that the school ordered copies of my A-level scripts. They're like, how have you done so badly? And it was like, everything you've written is really good, but you've only written a page. Well, yeah, because I had to stop and think, and I'm not good at tests. I know the answers, but it's like actually something from here to here.
Wow.
And it's so obvious, but actually the school was happy to say that me, who kind of represented the school at every sport and was in the choir, and when I got into the 6th form, I would kind of go to every evening to, like, if there's a music evening, they need to serve tea and coffee. They were quite willing to say that I was easy now. This ain't Elite Daniels. But they were quite happy to go lazy. They at no point did they go, well, a lazy person doesn't give of their time like this. And so I kind of have an empathy, because I go, I don't think I was. I remember thinking, I'm not lazy. It's just I can't do it. And so it doesn't surprise me when I hear about any sort of disability that society will aid and abet the absence of people of colour. Because you never forget that during COVID, there were literal government ministers that were like, it may not be the worst thing if some people with disabilities don't make it. Hunger Games, UK COVID edition.
Jeez.
I think even on that, if support services aren't like culturally aware or diverse or willing to make the changes that they need to be that way. So it's like, even when you do have families that want to reach out and want to get help and actually do want to engage in a system, it's not welcoming to them. So then it's like word of mouth. You're not going to hear like, oh, I know another black parent who's got an autistic kid. Yeah, just suppress it.
Yeah.
Easier. Just treat them like, and that's not the right answer.
Yeah.
So it's like they're not being caught by the education system, supported by the social services, and nothing gets better once you know. And it's then another burden on the parent to do that learning, to then help their child. Parent is probably overstretched, probably isn't their only child. And it's like, now what'd you do?
Yeah, and I can't help but thinking, obviously I'm American, and I can't help but thinking about how the consequences of that going unchecked leads to, you know, people who are in a state of crisis being murdered. Like, and nobody
That's literally
seems
the front
to care.
page of the Guardian. It's literally the
Murder,
top story of the
Every
Guardian. And the Guardian right now
week?
is the murder of, or the guy that killed Jordan Neely, who was a black man with autism who went into crisis on the New York subway. Who was first questioned by the police and then just let go. And it was only once there was like a campaign of pressure being like, no, you've killed a black man who's in a mental health crisis, that he's now been charged with manslaughter. But I have, again, people that have followed this pod for a while know that I don't watch black people being killed on handheld videos. I'm not doing it. But there's lots of videos where where Jordan Neely is going into crisis. This guy who's an ex-military man puts him into the chokehold that kills him, and he's being assisted by the other people apparently on the subway. So it goes back to what you were saying, Dom, about your time at Deloitte, where they were really good, but the workforce actually, the people around saw a person in a mental health crisis and went, we need to restrain and subdue that person.
Yeah, because it was an inconvenience on them.
Yeah. And who knows what was going through their brain? It could have been like, oh, probably just, you know, a crackhead or blah, blah, blah. Like, it's all of that stuff that's mixed in with it, and you don't take the time to... It's fear and ignorance and hatred, I suppose, of that other.
It's shame as well, I think. It's that thing of... So again, if I bring it back to that school that's created that, I'm going to call it a resource. I think that what there is they go, well, we know queer people and they form part of our circle. And there's been I think in this country, there's probably been like a 30-year campaign to kind of normalise queer people, which is obviously a great thing, because I'm old enough to remember, you know, the Brookside lesbian kissing scene and the kind of uproar that caused, and now it's kind of been completely normalised. But when it comes to race, there's I'm the only, and I'm not a staff member, I'm a freelancer, I'm the person of colour, so when I bring stuff, that rush to defend, I think, comes from a place of, I don't know anything, I don't know enough about this topic, and I am ashamed because we are in the caring business. And so you can go one of two ways. You can go, do you know what, I don't know enough about this, I'm really sorry, I'm going to go away and learn. Or I can go, let me drag this back to an experience that I know and hope that suffices. And I think that can be partly rooted in shame.
Could I pose a question just really quickly? Okay, so because I actually messaged the guys in our WhatsApp group the other day when I was seeing a young black guy being sort of like interrogated by the police in my neighborhood, and there was like a white couple standing across from the street observing, and it didn't look like anything negative was going down, but with my like inherited trauma for what I witnessed in the States all the time, I was like, should I wait here? Should I I don't want to escalate the situation, could be nothing. I had all of this internal conflict, right? So let's say it's a situation where somebody looks like they're in a crisis, and potentially somebody who has, some sort of neurodivergence, but you don't know. What are the steps that one takes in that kind of situation? Or what would you, as somebody who has, gone through experiences where you said, you didn't have friends and it would have been nice for somebody to reach out to you, what do you wish the world looked like, I guess?
I feel like in instances like that, I would never expect another black person to insult themselves, because if it's with the police, like generally,
Yeah, that's fair.
because even for me personally, when I see like another like a young black boy being stopped, I'm like, I'm old, I should stop. But I'm just like, I'll linger. If I need to be a witness, I'll be a witness. And obviously, if things get too far, then I'm calling. Who do you even call? Because the police.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Like, what
I
do you
don't
actually do?
But yeah, again, I think I wouldn't expect to. I don't know how to answer because I don't get involved with the police.
Yeah.
There isn't a one size fits all.
There isn't.
And as you get older, I'll speak for myself. I've just tried and put myself in spaces where I can't even be accosted. Like that's part of the on a level. That's a reason I've not been to Carnival for so long. Because the last time I went to Carnival, I got stopped and searched coming off of a train, and I was wearing a vest, shorts that didn't have no pockets, and flip flops. Everything I had, I carried in my hands because I was like, I just want to present no threat. And I'm getting like up against the wall, and there was a white guy who was in our group who I didn't know, who's having like a lovely conversation with the guy that's not really searching, being like, "Oh, sorry, man, just see, yeah, I've got some weed on me." I'm like, I didn't know you had weed on you. Like, I was like, "Oh, weed," and he went, "Nah, mate, we're not looking for that." Meanwhile, I'm there being kind of like being taken to third base because this guy gave me a very thorough search, and then at the end of it, he kind of goes, I'm giving you, these are the powers, I'm giving you this piece of paper that lets you know why. So then I go, oh, so if somebody else comes to try and stop and search me, can I present this piece of paper to be like, it's been done? He was like, nope. And it hung over me for the whole of Carnival. And if you look at the photos from me of Carnival that year, I look miserable because every time I saw a police officer, I was like, I'm about to like get stopped and searched. So my response to that was just don't put myself in that space. And I think that people that I know that are neurodivergent and know they're neurodivergent will just avoid putting themselves into certain spaces because it's better than prevention is better than cure in those situations.
Even like my local tube station's right by a football ground. It's like, and obviously there's increased police presence on a match day. I'm not getting the tube that day. I'm just not. It's just no. Like, I'm not loud. I'm literally probably going into Central, but not happening. Don't go near the police.
You raise an interesting point, and it's a really good segue actually into the coronation, an unexpected segue, and more about the overreach of police powers. And I've been sat bemused whilst people, are shocked and aghast at the curbing of previous powers that they had before, previous rights that they had before, have been taken away from essentially white middle class people.
Did you see the Kelechi tweet?
I did not.
No.
Which one?
Kelechi. Like, it was what I saw it this morning, and it's been my source of joy all day. She put out this tweet yesterday. No, this morning. Was it? It must have been this morning where she said, it said something like, breaking news. White women find out that police do overreach. More on this breaking news shortly. And it was about like these people that kind of got arrested at the coronation. And I was like, Kelechi, you have done it again. Because it's breaking news. White middle class women discover that the police can harm them too. We will update you as this story develops.
It's honestly, it's been a fascinating journey, and it's been interesting to watch, like, from the outside, this coronation. I think as they realise, do you know how bad and how corrupt the Met have to be for the majority of society to have turned against that? They're at a place now where they're going to have to disband the American at some point, because there's support basically in about 20% of society, Telegraph readers, few male readers. And that's essentially it. And it started pretty much turning, obviously, the Sarah Everard thing from there, and Daniel Morgan. And it's just been body blow after body blow as people realise that no one's safe from that overreach of power. And the more people that turn against them, the more afraid and insular they get. and the more afraid and insular they get, the more sort of reckless they're going to get. And it's a pretty, you know, we're laughing, but it's not a good time ahead of us.
No.
And the reason I wanted to bring it up is that whenever police get new powers, the way that our society is structured, it is going to fall on the heads of minorities the hardest. And minorities, if they are also neurodivergent, are going to get it harder again, because people that go into a mental health crisis, the police have powers now where they can do things and justify it. Like, they can justify it under feeling threatened.
If I was taken and they could just section me, if they knew I was autistic, I'm like, this what?
Yeah.
Because again, like, I'm pretty eloquent. If I'm giving them what they seem to be batshot, their ego gets bruised. Like, that's why I never want to encounter the police. Look, and again, it's one benefit of it not having the paperwork. It's not in medical records. So it's like, but that again shouldn't be a good thing, because then that's preventing me getting access to other things that I've needed to, like, for jobs and stuff. It's a mess.
I sound like a character from Downton Abbey if I have to encounter the police. You think I sound posh now? You know, I'm so sorry. So what seems to be the problem here? I'm fighting for my life in those situations, and I know that the way that this country loves to kiss boot, if you sound like you're from landed gentry, even if you look like me, it might give you it might make them pause just an extra second. And the wild thing about this is I've got friends that are in the police. I had to interview them. I wrote a piece for a piece I was doing. I had to do some research. I had to speak to some police officers.
Oh yeah.
And it's one of the things that one of the craziest things.
I'll be quiet about my sister then. DCI Harriet.
No, but the thing that I found so crazy is, because I'm friends with them, they get quite loose and they say stuff, and the fact that they feel comfortable saying it makes me realise that I should feel very uncomfortable challenging it, because it's a normal thing.
Yeah.
And I think I may have told this story in the pod before. I remember when I was about 19, 20, 21, and I was playing for a basketball team, and I think three members of the team were police, and I think two of them were Met. And we went on a night out, and they were telling these stories. And I'm here just like being traumatized. I know, you know, all names are made up, but it's like, yeah, do you remember that time when we finally caught like Danny Fulton, and, you know, he called me a dickhead back when we were in year 8 at school, so I made sure that I fucking broke him. And it's like, but you're looking around, because obviously in a social setting, you have to kind of see how people are playing it, and it's like, you're like, so yeah, with the coronation, I think what we saw was chilling, because, you know, from the fact that the most diversity you saw was on the jewelry that came from the continent of Africa and Asia, to Floella Benjamin saying, me being here shows how far diversity has come, to the fact that the police were arresting anybody. And it was this, for me, it was so coordinated. It was, we'll arrest everybody, and then we'll put out we're regretful afterwards. And the thing is when the coronation goes away, those powers don't. And so, and we know how this country will do a thing of demonizing somebody. So, you know, if you're arrested, it's, you know, they were being violent. You know, if I'm arrested, he is 7'4" and 29 stone.
Well, this is the thing that, and the one thing that gives me a bit of hope is, as I say, because so many people are kind of waking up to it, they can't hide their hand anymore. And that's how they said with those. Sorry?
They'll save themselves first.
But yeah, this is true. But like, for instance, with the rape alarms thing, people saw that had been seeded into the public before it happened to give them a reason to arrest them on the day. And now after the fact, they're having to, like, they've basically had to admit that it's all absolute bullshit. I'm not saying this is a positive thing. I'm just saying it's a slightly better a set of circumstances with which to encounter the future that's coming.
But let's be honest, the racism in this country is super powerful, and like Meghan Markle is vilified, and Andrew was out here wearing up gowns and shit. And
Yeah, but
people-
he didn't turn on his family. Right?
Do you know?
No, we're not doing Andrew today.
But not, we're
you-
not either Prince or Tate. With no Andrew. This is a no Andrews
No
pod.
Andrews.
Did you swear the oath?
Oh my God. That's God Save the Queen.
Are you?
What oath?
That's the right answer.
Oh, so you
Good.
know
Oath
what's
of
funny?
allegiance to the king.
We were invited as a nation to swear an oath of allegiance to the king. And they made a really big point of saying, we're not forcing you to, but we would encourage you to. And it's
Yeah.
like, blessed be the fruit. Like, that's a Handmaid's Tale reference for anybody. That
You know what's funny though? When I get my citizenship,
you have to do that oath.
it's a requirement, which is why I will not be saying anything further on this
I'd be
podcast
there
on
like
the
that. I'd be there
topic.
like that.
We can dub something in.
Yeah. Well, dub in the oath.
How do you used to pledge an allegiance?
Huh?
Where you come from?
I actually
That's what it's
after
To some of the
9/11,
worst people in history.
After the war, after we entered the war in Iraq, I stopped saying the Pledge of Allegiance. So I haven't said it since I was
But before that, it was
wee babe.
calm.
Huh?
Before that, it was calm.
Well, before that, I was like, what?
Should have been like 10.
6? No, not even. I was like a wee child. And then I was 10 and I was like, you can't tell me I have to say. I actually almost got in trouble from a teacher who was like, you must respect that flag.
Oh my God.
And I was like, I'm 10 and I can do what I want. So Anyway.
I find it bizarre.
it's not about the
I
US.
find it
It's a
absolutely bizarre.
whole other topic.
I find it bizarre.
You know what? Can I just say on this coronation, I don't know if it's the bubble that I live in, but I really was like, this seems like such a farce. It was giving Emperor's New Clothes.
That's
like
what it's gonna be. That's what it is.
like it's literally it was like this promenade of I just thought that, especially for younger people who live in the UK, that especially after the Meghan Markle thing, and especially after, I mean, just look at who was crowned, and like they could barely get the crowns on their heads. And it just felt like maybe younger Britons were kind of releasing their, I don't know, there's like a sense of apathy kind of about the
Alana,
royal
I
family.
really,
But
again, you're in London.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe it's just I was so actually surprised to see people our age going to line up to watch the parade.
They ain't Londoners.
My favorite.
I know,
thing
but
was,
that's why it's so wide. It's like it's such a bubble here, like a hub here in London.
we can leave it on this. Maybe the funniest thing that I saw was, and I can't remember. I think it might have been Channel 4 News, but they were scanning through a crowd, and there was a guy that was clearly doing business, and then the camera, and he just broke out into God Save the King, and it was the funniest thing I've seen. These guys got the bag that comes over the side. You know, he's like, two for 20, free. What do you mean, 3 for 60, bro? ain't no deals in the trap house. God save. And he was loud with it too. He's like, you got to remember me for the right reasons.
Oh,
Them coronation specials.
Oh man.
well, this is it. Like you were saying, it feels like Emperor's New Clothes. That's the part that from being young, I've never understood it, because kings and queens, princes and princesses are for fairy tales. And the fact that you've got seemingly intelligent people in this country,
Where?
that's why I said seemingly, like lining up to go and pay their respects for how many hours and then pledging allegiance to this king. I genuinely, I really don't understand it.
History, though,
Don't
innit?
understand it. But the thing is, I get the individual components, but I don't understand how someone could look at all of that and be like, this is the choice I'm going to make. I just genuinely don't understand it.
It's history.
Bring us home, man.
Tyler, where can people find you?
Oh, online. No, I'm in an era of mystery, but no. I'm gonna have to say LinkedIn. I write on Substack as well. tylagrant.substack.com. Fun projects coming soon, actually. About literally when I get home, releasing a podcast. It'll be fun.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So that's all about the Black neurodiverse experience.
What's the name of the podcast?
Black and Neurodivergent podcast. So
Nice.
so inventive. But yeah, it's like a 6-episode series just speaking to people at different stages of their diagnosis and realizations, and it's pretty cool, if I do say so myself.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Definitely check that out.
Congrats. Well done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Been 3 years in the making.
Much needed. Much needed.
Fantastic stuff. Thank you for coming on the pod.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank
It's all
you.
right.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure.
Been
Thank
hot,
you.
but it's been all right. I'm so
It's warm, isn't it?
It's these floodlights.
Lights.
Okay. We're going to cool you all down with a drink. And we out.